So, what do you think about electric vehicles? And in particular, electric vehicles for overlanding or four wheeling? Our guest today actually works on electric vehicles, so he sees the ins and the outs and the pros and cons of them as well. Hey everyone, it's Wes from 4x4 Canada. I grew up in a 4x4 family. According to my mom, my first word was Bronco, not mum or mother. Kids had posters of girls or athletes on their walls. I had posters of monster trucks and truck pulls and mud boggers. I have over 20 years experience in 4x4 shops and many more than that in the off-road racing circles. I've been involved in 4x4 and racing clubs in BC, Alberta, and Ontario. Now I've decided to share my passion with you. I just want to remind everybody about our socials. You can check us out at 4x4canadapodcast.com. On Facebook and Instagram, we got 4x4 Canada Podcast, as well as our sister channel on YouTube at Vintage 4x4 Canada. Hey everybody, I'd like to welcome Mike from The Unexpected Off-Road. This is a session that was recorded a while ago and got off on a tangent about electric vehicles. Mike is one of the few guys that I know that has actually worked extensively with electric vehicles. And as you already know, Mike from The Unexpected Off-Road is also a Hummer fanboy. So, of course, we're going to talk about the electric Hummer. But it's interesting to get feedback from a person that actually works on these vehicles and sees the pros and cons of them. There's definitely a lot of pros and there's definitely a lot of cons. And no matter what side of the fence you sit on, electric vehicles are here to stay. I'm a firm believer in that. It's going to be an interesting next 10, 20 years. One of the things I am working on is to have a roundtable discussion with Mike and other people that are in the electric vehicle industry, whether they work on them as Mike does, or whether they drive them every day, or maybe they're a proponent or a opponent of electric vehicles. But I think it'd be really interesting to have a roundtable discussion with real world users and go from there. In the meantime, here's a discussion that I had with Mike from The Unexpected Off-Road. Check him out on YouTube. He's driving his H2 Hummer. Hopefully we can get him into an electric Hummer one day. GM, hopefully you're listening. I really want to hear what you guys think of electric vehicles and the future of electric vehicles. Let us know on our Facebook page. But now I'm in the BC interior and you're working at a GM dealership up there. And I know that you do a lot of work on the electric vehicles.
Yeah, so once again, and I'll tell you this, the dealership that I'm at now, and I'm not saying this because I work there. I'm saying this just because I feel it. It's one of the better places I've worked for. Like, it's as close to Hummer as home as I ever felt. Like, it's a really good place. Kind of the same thing, you know. You kind of get burnt out in your job. You've done so many different jobs. You've done it over and over and over and over again. And in my industry, and I hate to say this, and just how it is, you're as good as your last screw up, basically, what that comes down to. But you know, your last mistake, you could fix 1,000 cars 100% perfectly right, but those two that you screw up on, you'll hear it for the next 10 years, right? I mean, it's just. So you get burned down and stuff, right? So, the electric cars came out. We had the Bolt that came out, right? And I was fairly interested. I like technical stuff. I like, you know, new things that come out and stuff like that. So we had quite a few of those come in. We sold a few in the dealership, and then started doing some work on. Basically, there's a Volt with a V and there's a Bolt with a B, which why GM ever did that, I don't know. So the one with the V, we'll call it the V car. So the one with the V is a hybrid. So the hybrid one is basically like correct.
That came out first.
And I'll tell you this, that is the best car that GM ever made. Little secret. They didn't break. But I'm like, in the 26 years I've worked at GM dealerships, and GM has built some crap. Trust me. Like, they have built some pretty stinker cars, but that car did not break. Like, very few repairs on that vehicle. And it was a hybrid, and it got good gas mileage, and they stopped making it. It's gone. That's gone.
Why? Because it actually worked.
It's like the last year of the Fiero, best one they ever made, but nobody wanted it because all of them burned before that. I know, right?
Well, was there actually a good Fiero though?
That's the American Italian sports car. But it's amazing because I'm honest with you, that vehicle was a very well built, very good. It didn't sell. I don't know why. I mean, at first it did. It sold pretty well.
Yeah.
I always thought it was better than a Prius, but just didn't. The market wasn't there for it. And so what happened was the Bolt. So the electric Bolt, which is fully electric, once it came out, the market for the Volt car, dried up because the people that at that time wanted hybrids wanted full electric. They wanted a full electric car. So there was no market for the hybrid. Now people with how much is gas fuel here now? $2 and it was $2.10. It got up to $2.20 a liter. So for you guys, So let me just give you some reality for you guys that are in the U.S. thinking you have high gas prices. Basically, $2.20 a liter equals to somewhere close to $8 a gallon. Put that in your head. You guys down there complaining about $5 a gallon. No, we're up to $8 a gallon. So those hybrids would be selling like hotcakes right now. And guess what? We don't have a hybrid on the lot at all. We have electric cars.
Yeah.
So talking about myself getting burned out at the dealership and just, like I said, I've been in dealerships for it's like 26 years. Basically kind of losing that passion again, losing that spark, right? So I forget how long ago it was, but anyways, there was a leak about electric Hummer. Everybody's like, oh, come on. They're never, everybody's and I had it, I had the article printed out and I had it on my toolbox. I'm like, yes, I know it. There's going to be electric Hummer. And they're like, no, that's like a unicorn. Why would they do that? Of all vehicles, why would they pick a Hummer? Come on, they're not, and GM kind of let it out, and it was kind of like a super underground secret that everybody knew. But then I was like, man, and I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Here we go again. I'm like, Hummer's going to come out and it's going to be its own brand. It's going to be its own dealership. And here I'm in Canada and far away from Vancouver where they're probably going to have a Hummer dealership, and I'm not going to be a part of it. Right. And I'm like, man, in the back of my head, I'm like, don't be disappointed. Just don't it might be a disappointment. So, flash forward, they come out with the truck and it's going to be GMC. I'm like, no way. I work for a GMC dealership. I'm like, no way. Just not going to happen. I'm like, sure. I'm like, it'll go to Vancouver or whatever. Right. So anyways, I go right to my general manager and the owner of the dealership. Hey, are we going to sell these? Well, I don't know. I'm like, well, I want to, I'm like 100% yes, let's sell them. Yes, I want, so anyways, they put in a bid on it and they became a franchise to sell. You had to have certain criteria to be able to, a dealership to sell those vehicles. And we had sold enough Bolts and enough electric cars and vehicles that we qualified for all the stuff. So yeah, we were on board, and I was just like, man, are you kidding me? All right, well, you know what? Once I knew this was coming, I went right into my service manager and said, you know what? I will take every electric vehicle, hybrid vehicle out there that comes into the shop. I said, the criteria is I get every Hummer that comes into the shop because they're also electric. He goes, deal. He goes, some of those guys don't even want to work on electric cars anyways. I'm like, well, perfect. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I know you've gone down to Vancouver for training on electric vehicles and stuff like that. And I've seen you've texted me pictures, or you've put pictures up on your Instagram or Facebook of a electric motor completely apart, on
and
your
it's
bench
funny.
And
It's a whole nother, it's funny because,
world.
Yes, I took one apart, and the magnets that are inside of those are unbelievably strong. So in the service manual, it says you're supposed to do this procedure where you keep them separated and on the bench and whatever, right? Well, I wasn't paying attention, and thank God my hand didn't get between it. But the two, I think it's the stators I believe it's the stators that are in there. They're part of the electric motor. Like if you're not familiar with electric cars and transmissions and that sort of. So if you look at an armature, like an electric motor, like for your RC car or something like that, it's something similar to that, but it's just a round circle. So anyways, I had two of them laying on the bench. Well, they sucked to each other. They went smack. And I'm like, oh crap. Like I hope they didn't crack the magnets or something, right? Because they were stuck. It took 4 of us to pull that magnet apart. Like it was that strong. And then it was like, whoa, like, okay, like I gotta, there's some mad respect for this magnet now. You can't get your finger in there. You're going to lose it. Like, I mean, there's a reason why they have a procedure. And that's why we have to go for such specialized training. Right. And funny story is if I wouldn't have gone to my service manager and said, hey, I want this electric training, and they sent me right away. Like they sent me pretty much, I think it was next month or two, they sent me for training. And then a huge recall came out on the bolts for batteries. And guess what? At the same time, GM came out and said, if you don't have the training, you can't work on these cars. So basically how that kind of works is, so our technician, we have a number, like our kind of like an employee number through GM, and that is attached to our training. So when the warranty clerk goes in to process your warranty job that repair you did, your number gets attached to it. Well, if your number doesn't have EV training, it gets rejected. They won't pay for it. So dealership loses out. So luck just happened to have the training, and I'm the only guy in the shop that has the training. We got guys now that are they're working their way to get all the training, but I was in the catbird seat, like woohoo, like. And you know what? A lot of people will talk, bad stuff about GM and having recalls and that sort of thing. Well, you got to kind of look at GM's just trying to make sure that vehicles are safe, right? They were having problems with the batteries above 90%. Catching on fire, basically, is what happened. And it could be a small percentage. Like it could be out of, I don't know, 100,000 vehicles, maybe it's 20 or 10 but there's, you got to remember where people charge cars. Yeah. They charge them in their garage, right? Or by their house or whatever. And that cord's attached to your house. And if it catches on fire and that charge cord, it can electrical fire right into your house, basically, right? Which is scary enough. But the other side, if you think, when you're thinking about a recall like this, so a battery is the lifeblood of an EV. Like it's almost the engine of the car, right? Because it propels the car, right? So these people totally bought a 2018, I can't remember the first year of the Bolt. 18, I think, was a Bolt first year. 2018, 19, and 20s, and some 22s. Anyways. So if you had one of those early cars, everyone had a recall on it. So if you had a 17, 18, something like that, anyways, one of the early ones, and you had 200,000 kilometers on it, guess what? You got a brand new battery. That's almost like getting a brand new car. Like you can't be that mad at GM.
That's awesome.
And so your capacity. So I was looking at it, and I think it was 45 kilowatt hours. So the new battery went to like 63 kilowatt hours, which that gives you more capacity, which leads to driving your car longer. Like with EVs, your kilowatts per hour is what, makes the most of the battery, right? So that's awesome. Like, man, if I was like, dang, that'd be cool. That's like getting a new engine in your car or whatever, right? Like you got to kind of look at the good side of it, right? That's perfect. I know people don't want their car taken apart or whatever, but so I did a lot of that.
Every manufacturer out there has warranty stuff, right?
And they're just trying to build a better products, right? They're just trying to keep people happy, and that's all. And
exactly. And I know that you and I have had some good conversations about electric vehicles, and I know both of us are quite excited about the future of electric vehicles in the 4x4, the overlanding world. You get the Hummer and you get Rivian and
Yeah, they are some big players. Like, I don't know if the Tesla truck is much of a player yet, because I don't know if it's a farce or it's even going to come out. Like, I mean, the other trucks had their issues, but yeah, the Lightning is a really awesome. You know what? That would be a really good overland vehicle because it's like a truck. Like, I mean, it's looks like a truck. It doesn't look like an electric quirky kind of thing, right? So I would say that's the most normal of the EVs. I mean, the Rivian has some pretty strong styling that you got to kind of grow on or like, or, you know. And then the Hummer EV, I like it. I think it's awesome, but it has some quirks too. I mean, it looks like an Avalanche. Yeah, I mean, it's
huge.
It's huge. To put this into perspective, my H2, the silhouettes. So basically, the whole entire silhouette of my truck fits on the inside of the Hummer EV. That will tell you how much bigger it is. It's as big as an H1, and an H1's pretty big. Like, that's why they had to do 4-wheel steering. Like, it's.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's what I was just thinking. It's having to pull it into a parking lot, you know. I can't imagine that, but even taking it out on the trail. I mean, I've been on the trails with H1s over the years, and in British Columbia, especially, or the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, they don't go where.
And when he's saying, and I'll kind of elaborate on it a bit. So when he's saying not go some places, he's saying that the truck won't fit through the trees. It's not that the truck's not capable. Like, and when you think, you know, the redneck in me, I'll just cut the tree down. Well, some of these trees are as big as a Volkswagen round. So you're not cutting down one of them big trees, especially if it's an old growth tree. You'll have a trail of people coming wanting to burn you for cutting down a big tree. No, we don't cut trees down, but no, it's big.
Yeah, it's big, and I don't think it's, you know, we're going to see a lot of that in the overland, at least in Western Canada, anyways. But it's going to be more for the the grocery.
I mean, trust me, I want to get one, and that's kind of the point of my channel is I want to build it big enough so I can maybe generate some clout to either get sponsorship or money or whatever to be able to get one. And I'll be honest with you, I will fully 100% take that truck off road, but it'll be select areas, you know, like, I don't know if you mind me mentioning or not, but like Baldy would be a good one because it's not treed in. It's pretty well open. Mara Fire Lookout's another one I would take it to. And honestly, it would make for some pretty epic photos that nobody else has of those trucks. And that truck would make it there because, and I get this from people a lot too when they're thinking about EVs. So when you take your truck off-road and go on off-road trips like we do, and we're pretty much weekend warriors for the most part. I mean, I use the term overlander loosely with me because I'm more of an off-road guy that just likes to have fun and whatever. And you call me overlander if you want, but
I'm an off-road guy.
We're car camping. Let's no, but no. I mean, I don't go out for weeks at a time. I mean, sure, that'd be cool, but I just don't have the capacity to do that. I'm a more weekend guy. Every once in a while, I'll take a week trip. Yeah. But so what I'm getting at is, and we have a lot of fun. We go off road and we go some pretty cool places. Most of the time, and my truck gets terrible gas mileage. Everybody knows Hummers don't. It's miles per gallon, not just it's one of those things. They get terrible gas mileage. So typically when we go out on our off-road trips, and I've been out with Wes and we've gone some cool places, I burn basically about a half a tank of gas, maybe a little more than a half a tank of gas. It's pretty rare where like, man, we're coming back on fumes. So here's my point. If an electric vehicle can get the same range that my H2 does, and I know that the Hummer EV, they've already said is like the worst for, I don't know, how do you say electric vehicle miles per gallon? What do they EPGs? I think they call it EPGs. They say it's the worst,
something like
basically
that,
because of its weight, it's big, and all those things, right? And it's fast. But if, from my perspective, if that truck can get the same range that I get out of my H2, there's no reason why I can't go on off-road trips, the same places that I've been. Just the width is going to be the only thing that takes me away from those spots, right? And there's no reason why, even if it's a Rivian or any other Lightning or whatever, if you get the same range that the Jeep does, and I'll tell you, I've been out with a lot of JKs and whatever else Jeeps that get roughly the same gas mileage because everything's weighted down from the tents and the gear and all that stuff. So if you're getting about the same fuel mileage as a vehicle that you're using currently, why not? I mean, that's kind of how I see it. It comes down to cost, right? I mean, I'm not going to lie. The Hummer EV is, I don't even know what the Canadian price is yet. It's probably going to be, I don't know, $120,000 or $130,000. Like, it's a lot to spend.
Yeah, see that's just way too much.
Yeah,
my
there's
budget.
I'll be honest with you. I cannot. There's no way that, just like back in the day, I said about an H1. There ain't no way I could afford one back in the day, right? And
I think what we'll see is a lot of people using that to go to Whistler or to Silver Star or Sun Peaks or that kind of, they gotta go up to the resort or whatever it is. And I think that's where we'll see a lot of those kinds of vehicles. But there's a lot of other vehicles like, James just picked up his 4x4E Rubicon. And, he, I think that's a great idea, a little 4-cylinder turbo. And, he was out with us to Cornwall, and he got
that's amazing. Mileage. But you know what? It's an amazing vehicle, but then there's some disappointing sides to it. Like the EV. Well, no, it's not. It's a Jeep. Oh, stupid Jeeps. No. Basically, what I'm getting at is the EV range of the hybrid is like, I don't know. It's pretty short. Like it's like 30 kilometers or something.
It is 35 kilometers from my understanding, which is short that way, but it works good for going back and forth to work, right? But he was getting good mileage, and it's something, I'd have to talk to, James on more, but the fact that he's getting far superior mileage than, say, I was my Tacoma or what he was, other people are doing with JKs and stuff like that. So it's definitely an improvement. It's just not at the full capacity.
Yeah, and those are totally very good and understandable points. It just, it seems like it's going to be a great vehicle, great way to go, for sure. I mean, it's funny, kind of all car manufacturers are getting rid of hybrids, and then Jeep comes out with a hybrid. It's like, it's kind of backwards, but maybe it's going to work.
And he also came out with
I know, it's like,
392.
Okay, I know we're going to stop making gas-powered vehicles. Let's throw a Hail Mary out there. Yes. And great for the Jeep guys, man. That's cool. I mean, the Bronco probably had a lot to do with that. Like the Bronco competition and, let's do a 392. You know what, though? Once again, it's like car manufacturers. Why couldn't you just put a 5.7 Hemi, just a regular, normal, just V8 in there? Why'd you have to go to the 392? Like, I mean, cool. But I mean, if you would cost wise, put the cheaper V8.
I can't imagine with the fuel prices the way it is now. I can't imagine.
And then Jeep's got some concepts. They had at the Easter Jeep Safari, a full electric Jeep, but in my mind, it's the wrong way to go because it was electric motors going through, I believe. It went through a transmission, and then it went through transfer case, and then it went, differentials. And like, you lose a lot of efficiency when you go that route. Like, you can't think of electric vehicle as a gas powered vehicle. And that's kind of what that concept said to me, right?
Yeah. And going back to the Hummer, from the videos that I have seen, most like your Rivian and your Lightning, the Rivian, I know, uses one motor per wheel, and the Hummer, they've gone to three motors total. Right?
One in the front, two in the rear. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, that's one of the real interesting things about the electric vehicles too, is if you have, say say, 4 motors, one per wheel.
Oh yeah,
that torque is instant, right?
And what you don't realize until you really get in and start studying how EVs are, especially on the Hummer or Rivian, they're all basically the same. There's no transmission, there's no transfer case, there's no there's nothing. There's very few moving parts in an electric vehicle to brake. You don't have a transfer case chain, drive shafts. You have a gear set. So you have your electric motor, you have a gear set, a combination of different gears to get the gear ratios. And then you have your output axles. So your CV axles, just like you would on a front wheel drive car or an IFS rear, suspension on a vehicle. Front, same thing in the front, right? So you just have super beefy. The axles are huge. And then it goes out to the hub, and that's it. That's a simple drivetrain that's going to put me out of work. In a sense, but there's going to be because that's what's changing in my job too. Is there's no fluid changes in those trucks. There's no maintenance. There's no you put tires and you put brakes on them.
Right.
That's it. I'm going to have to be there to fix them. Something's going to break, but the stuff that we make in our job that pads our paycheck, isn't going to be there. It's going to disappear.
Yeah. And you've seen that over the last, even when I was still in the automotive industry, where oil changes are going to longer time periods, they're going up, or mileage periods are going up to, 8,000 or 10,000. And so mechanical shops and dealerships are having to not let's say push other work, but basically push other work to
and they're going to have to be very creative on
that
to keep the business the way they are. But the smart ones are going to have to realize business isn't going to be as usual as it was in the past. It's 100% changing whether you like it or not, and you better adapt to it quickly, or you're going to get left behind and be a dinosaur. Is what's going to happen.
Is there any maintenance to do on electric vehicles? Is there, I know we do the oil changes on our cars and that, and you're saying that you lose out on that now because you don't have those fluids. But is there maintenance on electric vehicles that we can do to prolong the life of the batteries?
So
the vehicle itself.
Basically, the computer system now takes over that part. So you have a cooling system and a heating system for the battery for in the winter. Batteries got to stay at an optimal temperature, right? So they have they'll run the air conditioner,
right?
And it's got the same thing that inside of your dash, the evaporator, sort of the same thing inside the battery with refrigerant that cools the battery. So when you're going to do a quick charge, or what do they call it, level 3 charge, the one that's the fastest charging, right? The vehicle has to prep itself. So it turns on the AC system, cools the battery down to get it super cool so it can take that quick charge and doesn't overheat, basically. So in its computer system, it's smart. It'll keep that battery pretty optimal for quite a few years, I would say. A lot of people are, the batteries aren't going to last long. Well, we got electric vehicles out there that are 10 plus years old that still have the original batteries in them. So,
and the technology is changing so fast. You take a look at the technology, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. We didn't even have the iPhone, a smartphone, 15 years ago. What are they, 10, 12 years old now? Which absolutely blows me away. So, the technology of that flip phone that we used to have, and you compare that against a smartphone now, and that's only 10 years or 12 years difference. The technology in electric vehicles
we're on the cusp of
changing
getting to something bigger, right? Obviously, car manufacturers aren't GM has stopped making cars. There's no more cars. Ford stopped making cars. All the car manufacturers are going to stop making internal combustion engines. Hello, people out there. If you don't realize this, it's happening. It is. And kind of getting back to, sorry, we kind of got a little sideways there, but so the maintenance part. So the only fluids that you have in an EV vehicle, and this goes for all of them, they're all pretty much the same, is coolant, basically the same coolant that's in your engine, runs through the battery. So you got to remember, so coolant in cars is like 5 years, 100,000 miles. I don't know what that is in kilometers, but there's a time frame on it because the heat cycle, right?
Yeah.
The heat cycle, because every day your car thermostat, it gets up to 200 degrees to whatever, 230. So it has a heat cycle on it. So over the years, it breaks down to coolant, that sort of thing, right? Where the EV battery, it has heat cycles,
Right.
but it's not like the heat cycles of a gasoline engine. So the coolant, in theory, could last years longer. I mean, I'm sure they're going to have, I don't know what the intervals are for electric vehicle coolant, but it's definitely I would say it's definitely double of what a gasoline motor is, a gasoline powered vehicle is. So your coolant is the one fluid, and the other fluid is brake fluid. Like that's it.
Right.
And honestly, brake fluid doesn't, I mean, yes, I know it can get hydroscopic, it can get, water, whatever. You really don't need to change it. Like, I know we sell the fluid changes. I do them at work. I hate to say that. It's not like we're hiding it, but yes, it is sometimes it is a good idea to flush it if you've overheated the brakes and boiled the fluid and that sort of thing. I mean, there is some scenarios where it's good to change, but it's not something that not like an oil change where you change it at regular intervals or that sort of thing. So as far as maintenance wise, you're literally looking at brakes and tires. I mean, even light bulbs. So what people don't realize now is a lot of your simple light bulbs are all LEDs, and LEDs last forever. I mean, that's your map lights on every car now is LEDs. They used to be these little teeny tiny bulbs.
And again, that's going to that technology that was not there 10 years ago is now here, right? So, it just keeps on improving and improving. I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers in the States today, and we were talking about charging stations. And he's basically in Bellingham, Washington, and he's like, yeah, I think there's like 3 charging spots in town. And I'm like, dude, we could probably charge 15, 20 vehicles in my little town of, 80,000 people. And, going from, say, Kamloops up to Jasper, I did a quick thing on Google to see charging stations. And I think there's like something like 6 or 8 charging stations from here to Jasper.
Yeah.
Any which way you go, especially in BC, any which way you go, there's charging stations at rest areas. And, the Canadian Tire here in town has, 6 or 8 of them or something like that. And the Petro-Can up in the hills got, I think they've got 6 or 8 as well. And I know it's the same way, down towards your area. And I think, we're not at the point where everybody can go to an electric vehicle.
It's
right
slowly built. I mean, there. You got to think about back in the day with gas stations, right? You can't imagine that there was gas station on every corner when gasoline vehicles were first invented or come out, right? I mean, it's going to take its time, right? But there's a lot of them. Like the Walmart by me has, I want to say it's at least 12 or 13 Tesla superchargers. And then there's 4 Flow chargers, which I believe the Flow chargers are they're fast chargers too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know much about the charging stations other than I just see them in the parking lot as I'm putting $150 into my Tacoma.
Now here, and I'm going to try, I want to try to maybe do a video or something. Maybe not a video. I don't know. Maybe. Anyways, I have an idea, but I'd like to do a comparison between like my fuel costs, my maintenance, everything is for me to do overlanding trips, or off-road trips in my truck for like, let's just say a month, let's say 4 weekends or whatever, me going out, and the cost of what it costs for that. Right. And then what would the cost be for driving an electric truck, doing the same thing, but at the same time, figuring how much, basically my H2 has been paid off for years. Like I don't have a car payment on it. I don't have a payment on it, right? But you would have to figure out the electric vehicle payment, how much it's going to be a month. And it would be interesting to see how close it would be to, you think about a car payment. I don't know what an average car payment is now because I haven't had one for years, but like, let's just say an average car payment is $700, right? So if this electric truck would cost you $1,200 or $1,400 a month, which sounds absurd. But if your fuel costs and your maintenance and everything else adds into that, it almost might be feasible. I don't know. Like that's.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I've had that conversation with somebody before. And a friend of mine, and he has a actually I think he's got an electric Audi now, but he had a Tesla before, and he's like, it doesn't cost me anything. It really, like, he goes, yeah, I'm paying, say $900, $1,000 or $1,100 a month in my payment, but I'm also not paying $100 a week in gas, and I'm not paying, $100 an oil change or $80 an oil change or whatever, because I'm running some, synthetic and stuff like that. So he goes, in the end, he goes, it's not costing me any more to run this electric vehicle.
The little demon guy inside of my head says, for now. And I say that because cards.
Yeah.
So basically how taxes work, and everybody's got to know this. Your road taxes on your gasoline, right? I think you pay, what is it in BC? It's something like 30 cents a liter. It's something crazy for road tax. So basically,
like
that money goes to repair roads and snow plows and all that sort of thing, right? Well, when you have an electric car, guess what? You don't pay those taxes. And guess what's going to happen? Sooner or later, they're going to go, oh, we're missing out on that money. We got to have it, right? So,
yeah, they started doing that in the States already. So some of the states have started implementing a road tax when you renew your insurance. They'll take the mileage, and then, next time you renew it, and then you have to pay that road tax when you go to renew it. And I can totally see that happening. And when I was living in Ontario, they were really pushing getting away from natural gas for heating and for stoves and stuff like that. And they really pushed that and said electric. And you weren't allowed to build a new place with natural gas. Well, all of a sudden, 3 years later, when everybody was converting back to electric, they're like, oh my God, everybody's using so much electricity. We have to triple the rates because we can't keep up. And I can totally see that happening.
One of the downsides.
One of the downfalls. I can totally
have to think about that,
the price of electricity.
It's going to happen if everybody flops, unless there's some crazy thing that we just don't know about technology wise, where they're just going to have some magic thing that makes crazy amounts of power for everybody, which... How many hydroelectric dams is there going to have to be built, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, solar goes a ways, but I don't think solar would go enough to charge your car overnight. I mean, unless the solar charged the battery to charge another battery to charge your car.
So. Especially if you live in somewhere like, the lower mainland where, unlike up in interior here where God is smiling on us every day with rays of sunshine and he's, draining tears onto the Vancouver. I don't think that, that solar would work down there.
I mean, solar doesn't necessarily have to have direct sunlight. I mean, it works through the clouds too, but it doesn't work as efficiently as full sunlight can. So, but I don't know. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where our economy and world ends up with electric vehicles and the power grid and brownouts and banning some weird stuff too. Like, I think it's natural. Is it propane they're trying to get away from? Like, I think California banned it. You can't have any propane, anything
and it used to be deemed as a clean fuel because, I mean, there's a number of years ago, I've ran propane in my own vehicles and Bob raced in with propane and that, and it burns so much cleaner than gasoline.
And parts of the world have already started to do that. So. I forget which YouTube channel I was watching, but they drive an 80 series Land Cruiser all over the world, and they use propane for their stove and all other stuff, right? And they actually had places where they could not buy propane anymore. They couldn't get it filled. So they had to convert to other stuff, right? I never thought about that. There's other parts of the world that just...
Yeah, I mean, I use propane in my own stove, and I know you do as well. And I mean, what are they going to go back to, kerosene or the white
really
gas?
Know exactly. No, probably. I guess.
You know, when you're camping,
the white gas was okay, but it's not as good as propane. I don't know. Like, it's funny. What's going on with this world?
We'll be camping over the campfire
where are we
again.
Going to? I want something better, but I don't know. There's trade-offs, I guess, for everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got my own opinions on where the world's going, and sometimes I think it's not going that well, and other times I think it's just
that's a whole nother podcast.
Whatever happens, right? So exactly. Joe Rogan, you listening?